Hello everyone, this is Lye Yosh. Welcome back to Life, Study, Library. Today we're going to talk about an effective presentation technique. So when you're preparing a speech for a class, or doing a presentation at work, or if you're a candidate for an election of some kind, one of the most important things you are thinking about is to have a lasting impression on your audience and make them remember you as an outstanding, persuasive, and effective presenter. And there seems to be so many technique checklists that other people say you have to follow. Many people have heard don't look down during a presentation, but it's often very difficult, right? And many people don't know how to combat this habit. So that's what we're going to focus on today. And I'm going to drop a pretty big bomb right at the beginning. But while many people think that a great presentation comes from remembering what you have to say as much as possible and looking at your notes as little as possible, in reality, remembering what you have to say is not your biggest priority in your speech. Of course, if you can remember everything that you have to say, it would surely make your life easier, but you can totally look at your notes, honestly, pretty often, and still have a lasting, memorable, persuasive, and overall excellent speech. Personally, I'm that kind of dude that absolutely need the notes when I present something because I am in no way a good memorizer. And many of you probably feel the same way. So, rather than trying not to look at your notes and remember as much information as possible, I'll be talking about a technique that's about using that disadvantage to your benefit. And that technique is called see, stop, and say technique. In this channel, I'm going to be talking about these interesting scientific and psychological information by implementing data from scientific studies. So if this interests you and you want to watch more of my past and my future content, make sure to subscribe to my channel and also make sure to like this video, and that'll greatly support my effort. Thank you very much for doing that, and now let's continue with the video. So this technique, see, stop, and say technique, was used by many of history's greatest presenters, including but not limited to Winston Churchill, FDR, and Ronald Reagan. Oh yeah, by the way, I said this already, but usually I say that, in this channel I'm going to be talking about some interesting scientific and psychological information, but this is more about a single technique that I used myself during my own presentation and had really good results in it. But this is not just my personal experience, as it was used actually by worldly famous speakers like Churchill. So there are totally stuff to get out of this. Okay, so without further ado, let's get to how to actually do the technique itself. I'll talk about it step by step, so get ready with me. I'll wait for a moment for you to subscribe to my channel. Alright, let's go. Alright, so step 1. Take a piece of paper or some kind of a note card or whatever that you're going to use to look at during your presentation. So like a piece of a note card, whatever works. Step 2. Glance at your note card or paper and take a snapshot of words that you want to say in your speech. A few passages, or even one sentence would suffice. So pause for a moment and try to memorize at your best ability a passage or even a phrase. And then step 3. Look up at the audience and pause again for a moment, and then speak what we just memorized in a conversational manner. So no need to use these elaborate or difficult words to make your presentation sound, academic. You can totally make it sound like you're just having a regular old conversation with a bunch of people. And lastly, step 4. Look down again to see and remember the next column of words, sentences, phrases. Bring your head up to pause and look at the audience for a moment and repeat the same process. And that's it. That's the whole thing. And you can try this out for yourself. Pause the video for a moment. Don't worry, I'm not going to get mad. And try to mimic what I just said. Take a passage from a book or an article of your liking and repeat the steps that I just explained to you. So now that we've covered the steps, I'm going to talk about why we do this. The reason behind all of this. So the pause between each passage or phrase allows time for the audience to think about what you just said and understand the meaning behind it in detail. And also the pause between each passage makes the speech sound very important, and it puts weight on what you have to say. Therefore, it picks up the attention of your potential audience. It might sound awkward when you actually do this, but the key point is to speak with pauses that are a tad exaggerated than how you normally speak in a regular conversation. Good examples of this are speeches done by potential presidential candidates during the election campaign. If you pay attention to how they talk during the speech, you'll notice that they pause a lot, and look at the notes, look up at the audience and pause for a moment a lot. with the inclusion of the obvious, like speaking clearly and slowly and with confidence. This trend was not developed by accident. These candidates probably hired the best speech experts they could find, and I can say this with confidence that many of these speech experts suggested the see, stop, and say technique. So up until this point, we've looked down and memorized the passage, look up and pause while glancing at the audience and said and spoke the passage that you memorized, and then look down again and repeat the same thing with the next passage. I hope you're all still with me. At this point, there might be some worries, like, won't the pause between the speech make the presentation awkward and stiff? Won't that be bad because I'm going to be losing my audience? And to this, I'll say that the pause between segments actually allows the audience to digest what you just said with great care. Listeners will not be able to focus on the speech without a pause because their brain will be overfilled with information. Now, the reason why I talk fast is because my videos aren't about persuasion. I mean, the only persuasion I want to get from y'all is for you to subscribe to my channel and like my videos. By the way, please do so if you haven't already. It'll be a tremendous support for me. Anyways, talking fast with the context of the speech I give, it'll be best for me to talk at a fast enough pace so that so that it forces you to focus and listen to what I'm saying, and ultimately retain the information I discuss in the best possible way. I don't want to be like the science teacher who talks so slowly that I drain the life out of y'all. That's not what I'm here to do. Additionally, the reason why people can converse normally but present badly is because they have no trouble pausing during a conversation. When you converse with a friend with no pressure from an audience, you can easily use filler words like uhs and ums, right? But during a presentation, you understand that that's going to take away points, so you try to make the speech as smooth as possible. However, speaking smoothly and giving a good speech is a completely different thing. In fact, as much as people advocate others to have a smooth speech without filler words, it is scientifically proven that it's totally okay for you to use filler words. Or, wait, no, I didn't say that right. It's scientifically proven that the use of filler words is a sign that your brain is functioning properly. So it might not benefit you during a speech, but there's no reason for you to avoid the encountering of filler words. Again, back to the example of the presidential debate. They pause a lot to make sure the audience can take in what they're saying and be persuaded by it. And of course, the candidates will have their fair share of the usage of filler words. But more importantly than that, they'll use the see, stop, and say technique because their ultimate goal is to persuade the audience and make them think that the candidate is the right person to lead the country. Especially in a speech or persuasion, a pause strengthens the speech by giving weight to it rather than machine gunning the information to the audience nonstop. As for informational speech like I am doing right now, the opposite is more effective. I can force you to focus and listen to me so that you can gain new information. So we've talked about how dividing the speech by passage, by chunks, allows time for the audience to digest the speech thoroughly and put weight on what you're saying. So now we're going to talk about the next question. Why pause after you put your head up? Remember, because after you memorize the passage, you have to look up, look at the audience, and then pause, and then say the passage. Why do we have to pause even after we look up? If you've already tried this technique, you probably noticed that this pause is too long. You notice that it's way too long, so you might start to speak while you put your head up. This is a red flag, so don't do this. The reason why this is damaging to your speech is because it makes the audience think you're reading off from a paper, which is not something that you want them to think if you want to persuade them, right? You lose your credibility because you don't look like you're speaking from the heart anymore. Rather, make sure to separate the pause and your talk, because not only it can strengthen the speech, but it can also kind of fool the audience into thinking that you are simply taking a glance at your notes, and they're not going to think you're reading off from your notes, and you will still have the strength and the weight in your speech. Although it may feel like eternity if you do this properly, I guarantee you that the audience will think you were a strong spokesperson. And if you still distrust me, which I kind of recommend you doing, you can totally record yourself and see for yourself how strong of a speech you just made. So that was the entirety of the see, stop, and say technique. Look down at your notes and remember a passage, look up at the audience, and then pause for a moment, and then say the passage you remembered, and then repeat it for the rest of the speech. I suggest you give it a try, and I'm pretty confident that you will like the result of your speech very much. Likewise, there are many presentation techniques that you can learn and use in your own speech, and oftentimes you can learn these techniques from the great speakers of the past. I've already told you that the see, stop, and say technique itself was commonly used by great speakers like Lincoln and Churchill. And of course, that's not the only technique they've used that you can implement it yourself. You can honestly learn a lot from these people, including how to present yourself visually, how to organize the speech itself, how to start your presentation, how to end it. If you haven't already noticed, there's a lot of things going on in a speech. And you can learn all these techniques by reading the book I'm recommending today, which is called Speak Like Churchill, Stand Like Lincoln by James C. Humes. This title is really a technique-based book that talks about all the skills and methods used by many of humanity's greatest spokesperson, and even just stealing one technique from this book will tremendously improve your ability to make fabulous presentations and influence the audience. I thought this was a really easy book to read because you can just read about one technique and then use it in your upcoming presentation, and then take another technique for the next presentation. And if you don't agree with one of them, or you found that it was ineffective, you can just ignore and move on to the next one in the list. And that concludes everything I wanted to say in this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to my channel so you can watch more of my past and my future videos. And also, don't forget to like this video and tell me what topic you want to hear about in the future videos. That's it from me. You've been listening to Life Study Library, hosted by me, Lye Yosh. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in my other videos. Bye.